Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Almost a week after the pahalgam attack, tensions between India and Pakistan are on the rise, with continuous provocations along the line of control and 4 nights of gunfire. Meanwhile, the terrorists who attacked last week still remain at large. We'll bring you up to speed with the investigation and the political moves around Kashmir. Also looking at developments in Pakistan, new statements from their Prime Minister and their Army Chief. Does Pakistan want war? Can it afford one? And how is the world responding after going through the motions of condemnation? Donald Trump dismisses it as a centuries-old problem. The United Nations issues a watered-down statement and China faces a tough choice. Will it back its iron brother Pakistan, or will it try to save the reset with India as Trump's tariffs threaten to ruin its economy? We'll also talk about the houses of terror suspects being demolished in Kashmir and decode the strategy behind it. The takeaway from the meeting between India and the Taliban, how foreign media betrays its bias by getting Pakistanis to write on Kashmir. What caused the massive port blast in Iran? Was it rocket fuel explosion? What happened in the Trump-Zelensky meeting in Rome? Was it a turning point or just a photo op? And the flag war in the West Philippine Sea, it's China versus the Philippines. All this and more lined up. The headlines first. A massive blackout hit Spain, Portugal and parts of France. The power outage has impacted millions of people. All trains have stopped across Spain. Airport services have been disrupted in Spain and Portugal. Mobile phone networks are also down. The cause of the blackout is yet to be identified. Russian President Vladimir Putin announces a surprise 3-day ceasefire in the Ukraine war. The unilateral truce will be from the 8th to 10th of May. It is to mark the Soviet Union's Victory Day anniversary in World War II. Putin had issued a similar order over Easter, but last month he rejected a US proposal for a 30-day ceasefire that Ukraine had accepted. India signs a deal with France for 26 Rafale M fighter jets. The multi-billion-dollar agreement will include both single and twin-seat planes. The deliveries are expected to be completed by 2030. The Rafale M is considered to be one of the world's most advanced naval fighter jets. The Indian Navy will be the first user outside France of these jets. Canadians vote in a snap federal election as the country faces annexation and tariff threats from the US. Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal Party were behind the Conservatives. But Donald Trump's attacks on Ottawa have led to a reversal in poll forecasts. Polling will be held in Canada across 6 time zones. And the conclave to elect a new pope will start on 7th May in Vatican City. Catholic cardinals will meet in the Sistine Chapel to choose their new leader. The vote is highly secretive and the process could take several days. On Saturday, Pope Francis was laid to rest. India and Pakistan are on the brink. The only question is, of what? A full-scale war? A limited military standoff? Or something else? Things are very tense in the region. Everyone is bracing for India's military response. Meanwhile, Pakistan is stoking the fire. They're provoking India at the line of control, the de facto border between India and Pakistan. On paper, there is a ceasefire along the LOC, but Pakistan is constantly violating it. India has reported dozens of firing incidents from the other side. They started around Thursday night. That's when India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty. And since then, since Thursday night, Pakistan has been firing every night, 4 nights of unprovoked firing. And how is India responding? Reports say swiftly and effectively. Plus, no casualties have been reported on the Indian side. New Delhi is not just responding at the LOC, it is also preparing the big guns. The Indian Navy carried out drills over the weekend. They fired long-range anti-ship weapons. Take a look at this. These drills are all about readiness. If fighting breaks out, your war machine has to be ready. It has to be well oiled and prepared. Same for the political leadership. Yesterday, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met the Chief of Defence Staff. Today, he met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Their meeting lasted around 40 minutes. And what did they discuss? Reports say the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, what sort of operations are ongoing and what arrangements are being made. They discussed all of this. Of course, the top priority will be hunting down the attackers. There were 4 terrorists in Pahalgam, out of which 2 were Pakistani. The other 2 were Pakistan-backed. Indian security forces are tracking them down. It's a joint operation by 3 Indian agencies, the Indian Army, the Central Armed Police Forces, or CAPF, and the Jammu and Kashmir Corps. Officials have called it a cat-and-mouse game. These terrorists are using the forest cover to move around. They only emerge for food and supplies, and that's when they get spotted. Reports say the forces have located the terrorists 4 times. First near a village called Hapatnar, then near the forests of Kulgam, then near Tral Ridge, and finally in Kokarnag. On one occasion, the forces came very close. Apparently, they also exchanged fire, but eventually the terrorists got away. The army is hoping to corner them inside the forests, but this is a very tough terrain. You've got thick jungles, steep hills, and deserted meadows. Even if you spot them, the job is not done. Nonetheless, Indian officials are confident. They believe it's only a matter of time that the terrorists will eventually make a mistake in the days ahead. And what happens after that? The first order of business is delivering justice. Prime Minister Modi promised that last week in no uncertain terms. The victims' families will also be hoping for that. It would be a key step towards closure. Secondly, we could get crucial evidence from the attackers, like what sort of weapons were they carrying, what documents did they possess, and who plotted this deadly attack. Well, we already know the answer. It is Pakistan. But if we get more evidence, it would silence the doubters. It would destroy Pakistan's case publicly. And that sums up the military updates from Kashmir. Beyond that, the region is slowly trying to heal. Today, the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly convened. It passed a resolution condemning last week's attack. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah said he does not have the words for an apology.
ये जानते हुए कि जम्मू कश्मीर की सिक्योरिटी, जम्मू कश्मीर की सुरक्षा, जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों की चुनी हुई हुकूमत की जिम्मेदारी नहीं है, लेकिन तब भी यहाँ के वजीर आला की हैसियत से, यहाँ की टूरिज्म के मिनिस्टर की हैसियत से मैंने इन लोगों को दावत दी थी यहाँ आने की। मेजबान होते हुए मेरी जिम्मेदारी थी कि सही सलामत मैं इन्हें यहां से वापस भेजूं। नहीं भेज पाया। और माफी मांगने के अल्फाज नहीं थे।
What's surprising and heartening is this. Some tourists have started arriving in Kashmir. In fact, even in Pahalgam, tourists are coming to Pahalgam. We're not talking about hundreds of or thousands of travelers, of course. We're talking about a few dozen. But it's not the numbers that matter. What matters is this vote of confidence. Listen in to some of these tourists.
अभी यहाँ पहलगाम में आए हुए हैं और हमको ये भी बहुत दुख है कि हमारे जो टूरिस्ट है भाई उनकी डेथ हो गई। उनका बहुत दुख है हमको। पर फिर भी यहाँ पे मार्केट वगैरह सब चालू है पहलगाम में। ऐसी कोई घबराने वाली बात नहीं है। यहाँ की इंडियन आर्मी है, यहाँ की सरकार है, वो हमारे साथ है। यहाँ की जो टूरिस्ट है, जो लोकल लोग हैं, वो भी हमारे साथ में है। वैसे तो कोई डर की बात तो नहीं है। मेरे को जो यहाँ पे आया हूँ जब से कोई डर की बात नहीं लग रही।
I didn't see myself uncomfortable about this because I'm sure that is not something that is regularly happens. It happens occasionally. It could happen everywhere, you know. So I'm aware.
The locals are also stepping up. Some are offering free trips to sightseeing spots. Others are gifting Kashmiri souvenirs. And this shows the spirit of India and Kashmir. The attackers wanted to destroy this harmony and unity, but it continues to live in Kashmir. This is a time for the whole country to step up, even for us in the media. Over the weekend, the government issued an advisory to media channels. It warned against live coverage of operations. And it's obvious why. Such operations and troop movements are supposed to be secret. If you broadcast them live, you expose the plans. We have seen this during the 26/11 attack and the Kargil war. So the government of India wants to avoid a repeat. We can tell you that here at First Post, we plan to be extra careful. Yes, we will bring you all the updates and developments, but nothing that will jeopardize national security. No rumors, no gossip items, only credible reports and announcements. That is our promise to you and the country during this tough time.
Forefathers, they thought that we are different from the Hindus in every possible aspect of life. That was the foundation of the two-nation theory that was laid there.
In Pakistan, the army does not serve the government serves the army. The world knows this. Their Prime Minister knows it too, that's Shehbaz Sharif. So the Pakistan Prime Minister really doesn't have much say. But he's trying to play both sides. Over the weekend, he made a public address at the passing out parade at the Pakistan Military Academy. And he said some conflicting things. First, Pakistan is calling for a neutral probe, a probe into what really happened in Kashmir.
The recent tragedy in Pahalgam is yet another example of this perpetual blame game, which must come to a grinding halt. And now, continuing with its role as a responsible country, Pakistan is open to participate in any neutral, transparent, and credible investigation.
Well, we can help with that. Here are the facts. What happened in Kashmir was a terrorist attack. 26 tourists were killed, and they were killed by Pakistani and Pak-backed terrorists. Yes, that saves some crucial time that Pakistan hopes to waste in the name of an investigation. But of course, Shehbaz Sharif did not stop there. And I think it's because he remembered where he was. The military academy in Abbottabad, with the steely eyes of the generals on his back. So he went back to the given script and indulged in some casual warmongering.
Any attempt to stop, reduce, or divert the flow of water belonging to Pakistan under the Indus Waters Treaty would be responded to with full force and might, and nobody should remain under any kind of false impression and confusion.
If you thought your situationship was giving mixed signals, you clearly haven't heard Shehbaz Sharif. What does the Pakistani Prime Minister really want? I guess that's a question we should be asking his brother, three-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, because reports suggest that he is counseling his baby brother. He wants him to choose diplomacy. It's almost touching. Nawaz Sharif thinks or pretends that civilians still run the show. The fact is, every Pakistani government since 1947 has been a civilian government only in name. The army runs the country. So the real question is, what does the Pakistan army want? Does it want a war? Can it survive a war? Their chief, General Asim Munir, made the first move earlier this month. He delivered an incendiary speech calling Kashmir Pakistan's jugular vein.
Government stance on Kashmir is absolutely clear. It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation.
This was before the Pahalgam attack. Then over the weekend, he doubled down. Asim Munir was speaking at the same parade as Shehbaz Sharif, and he dusted off an old dangerous script, the two-nation theory. Munir said Hindus and Muslims could never live together in harmony, that they are fundamentally different. And here we were foolishly believing that the world had moved on from 1947. Remember, Asim Munir said the same thing before the Pahalgam attack too. And this is what he said after, I'm quoting, "Our forefathers made immense sacrifices for the creation of Pakistan. We know how to defend it." Quite the speech to deliver at a graduation ceremony. But let's pause for a second. Does the Pakistan army want war? Or does it like just the idea of a war? Chances are it's the second. Asim Munir may be stirring the pot, but what he really wants is just the prospect of a conflict, something to distract from the rot at home. Because a real war has consequences, provocation has consequences, and Pakistan is already suffering those. For example, the Indus Waters Treaty. It's a treaty that survived 4 wars, but not this time because India has suspended it. There are reports of a flood alert in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. In unverified videos online, residents were seen scrambling. Islamabad has obviously accused India of releasing this water. New Delhi has not commented. But it shows the fear and chaos on the other side. Because the Pahalgam attack has changed the rules. Old constraints no longer apply. Pakistan tried to retaliate by suspending all trade with India. And with this, they shot themselves in the foot. I'll give you just one example. Medicines. Pakistan relies on India for 30 to 40% of its pharmaceutical raw materials. 30 to 40%. They need this stuff to make crucial medicines. But now they've lost access and hurt their own medical supplies. Islamabad is now looking at contingency plans. Of course, the generals will still get the best hospitals. The politicians will still fly to London for checkups. But the ordinary Pakistanis won't have medicines. And that is the biggest tragedy. Their economy is imploding. Inflation is gutting the middle class. Pakistan cannot afford a war. Ordinary citizens do not want a war. They want jobs. They want food. They want freedom from violence. They've been protesting against their army that has battered the country. And it's this army that wants conflict to secure its grip on power. Because generals do not lose jobs during wars. They become indispensable. So we say the enemy of Pakistan is not India. The real enemy is their army. That's who they have to fight. Almost a week since the Pahalgam attack and the cold-blooded killing of 26 Indians, yet the global response has been little more than ignorance. World leaders may have pledged solidarity, but do they really care beyond that? Look at Donald Trump, the President of the United States, arguably the most powerful man in the world. What does he have to say about Kashmir? Listen to this.
I'm very close to India and I'm very close to Pakistan, as you know. And they've had that fight for 1,000 years in Kashmir. Kashmir's been going on for 1,000 years, probably longer than that. And it was a bad one yesterday, though. That was a bad one. Over 30 people.
Are you concerned that there's now tensions on the border between them? Are you concerned about, how are you concerned are you about that?
Well, there have been tensions on that border for 1,500 years. So, you know, the same as it's been. But they'll get it figured out one way or the other. I'm sure that there's, I know both leaders. There's great tension between Pakistan and India, but there always has been.
There's been tension on that border for 1,500 years, he said. India and Pakistan have been fighting for 1,500 years. That's what Donald Trump has said. 1,500 years. You can almost hear South Asian historians screaming into the void. Anyone with a high school education knows this. Pakistan did not exist before 1947. Kashmir became a flashpoint only after partition. And yet, Trump thinks he's discovered some ancient blood feud. The faux pas would have been funny if it did not symbolize something so stark, the unabashed ignorance and insensitivity of the West. For them, a terror attack in South Asia is not a tragedy. It's a feature of the landscape. If a bomb goes off in Paris, it's a terror attack. If it's New York, it is terrorism that must be avenged. The perpetrators are named. They are hunted and crushed. But the same thing happens in Kashmir. And the vocabulary changes. Suddenly, it's a long-standing dispute. The killers become phantoms. Their affiliations are blurred. Look at the United Nations Security Council, the body responsible for global peace and security. The UNSC has condemned the terror attack in Kashmir's Pahalgam, and this is their statement. I'm quoting. The UN Security Council has strongly condemned the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam. In a statement, Council members emphasized that terrorism is a major threat to global peace and must be fought in all its forms. Guess what? The UNSC just pulled off a magic trick. It made the killers vanish from its statement. And how did that happen? Reports suggest the initial statement mentioned the TRF, the resistance force, TRF, an offshoot of the Pakistani terrorist group Lashkar-e-Toiba. The TRF initially claimed responsibility for the attack. Then they backtracked and they said that their platform had been hacked. With this, they tried to evade responsibility. The United Nations was happy to buy this sorry excuse. After all, the TRF is not even designated as a terrorist organization by the UN. In their final statement, the TRF was not named because Pakistan has friends in the right place. I'm talking about its big brother China. China is one of the permanent members of the UN Security Council, and it rallied to get the TRF's name out of the draft. Islamabad argued that there wasn't enough evidence to blame the TRF. It called for an independent investigation. Beijing backed the proposal. The UNSC went along with it, and that's how we got that useless generic statement. Although it was hardly surprising, we've always known that this hypocrisy and double standard exists. Year after year, India is asked to show restraint. Year after year, India is told not to escalate. When the West bleeds, the world must stand still. When India bleeds, it's a 1,500-year-old fight that they will sort out. The fact is terrorism, whether it strikes Paris, New York, or Pahalgam. If the world will not say it, then India must. China's role is very interesting here. On one hand is their iron brotherhood with Pakistan. On the other is the reset with India amid the trade war with the US. What does China value more? Will Beijing actively support Pakistan, or will it pay lip service and stay away? Let's look at their response so far, the Chinese response. Last week, China was quick to condemn the Pahalgam attack. Days later, it is urging restraint. China has backed Pakistan's call for a neutral probe. It is asking India and Pakistan to de-escalate.
China welcomes all measures conducive to cooling down the current situation and supports an impartial investigation as soon as possible. As a common neighbor of both India and Pakistan, China hopes that India and Pakistan will exercise restraint and meet each other halfway.
China has major strategic and financial investments in Pakistan. It treats Pakistan as a vassal state. On Sunday, China's foreign minister spoke to his Pakistani counterpart. No such conversation has happened with India's foreign minister. Plus, China is helping Pakistan at the UN Security Council. The Council passed a resolution yesterday. Reports say Beijing watered it down. The first draft called on countries to cooperate with India. The revised one seeks cooperation with relevant parties. Apparently, China pushed for this. And frankly, it was expected. Pakistan is China's Silk Route colony. But India is a strategic rival. A country with a population and potential to challenge China. So Beijing backing Pakistan is not a surprise. The question is, will they go further? I'll tell you why this is important. China is the biggest arms supplier to Pakistan. We have some numbers. From 2020 to 2024, they made up 81% of Pakistan's weapons imports. From 2015 to 2019, they made up 74%. And this is not new. China has been Pakistan's top supplier of weapons since the 1990s. This includes advanced weaponry too, like Pakistan's first spy ship, the Rizwan. Almost 600 VT-4 battle tanks and 36 J-10 fighter jets. All these deals were signed in recent years. Reports say Pakistan is also eyeing China's fifth-generation fighter jet. Around 40 units of it, of the J-35A. So simply put, China is arming Pakistan. Islamabad needs Chinese weapons to help and help to fight India. Again, the question is, will Beijing give it? On paper, China won't mind this flare-up. They too have border issues with India. Both countries were locked in a standoff since 2020. If India is more focused on Pakistan on the western border, it could be less focused on China. That will be the thinking in Beijing. Hence the political support for Pakistan. But military support, that is not guaranteed yet. Because China needs India a lot right now. Beijing's biggest concern is not a conflict between India and Pakistan at the moment. Their biggest concern is the trade war with the United States. China is counting on India's support. Xi Jinping has been talking about a dragon-elephant tango. If he wants that, he cannot arm Pakistan, at least not right now. It's definitely a tough call for Beijing, because this is precisely what they had prepared for. China does not arm Pakistan out of concern for its safety. China arms Pakistan to challenge India, to keep India's army busy on the western flank. It is playing out exactly how Beijing would have wanted it. But Donald Trump came out of syllabus. His trade war has pushed China to reset ties with India. Just look at what's happening in Brazil. Officials from the BRICS countries are gathering there. Indian officials were also supposed to attend this, but they're skipping it due to the tensions at home. The goal of this meeting is to oppose Trump's trade war, to reiterate support for free trade, and India's voice carries a big impact in such initiatives. Does China want that, or does it want to support Pakistan? As things stand, China's support is limited to words, but it's also a reality check for India. We need to be prepared for two fronts. To the east, Chinese soldiers with Chinese weapons. To the west, Pakistani soldiers with Chinese weapons. This is our new regional reality, and it's time we accept it. Now let's look at counter-terrorism efforts in Kashmir. India is responding not with guns or bullets, but with explosives and bulldozers. The target? Houses of terror suspects. At least 9 buildings have been destroyed. The message is clear. Terrorism will have consequences. Basically, if you create nests for terrorists, you lose the roof over your head. But is this the right approach? And are there other options that India can leverage? Let's discuss that. This operation began on the 25th of April. That's when the first house of a terror suspect was demolished. Since then, at least 8 other houses have also been destroyed. And this has happened across Kashmir, in small towns like Shopian, Pulwama, Anantnag, Tral and Kupwara. Security forces are using controlled charges to bring down these houses. In places where neighboring houses are too close to the blast radius, bulldozers have been used to bring down the structures. Officials say these are targeted strikes, these are not random actions. Some of these houses were launch pads for terrorists, others were safe houses to store weapons or hideouts where the attacks were planned. And look at who these houses belong to. Three names clearly stand out: Ehsanul Haq Sheikh, Adil Ahmed Thokar, and Shahid Ahmed. Officials say these are operatives of the Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Toiba. They were said to be involved in the Pahalgam attack. Now their homes have been destroyed. Who are the others? Overground workers, or OGWs, basically people who played a role in the terror attack. An overground worker is someone who helps terrorists by giving cash or shelter or information and logistical support. At least 15 overground workers have been identified. Officials say they helped the attackers with surveillance and exit routes. So the house demolitions have targeted terrorists and overground workers. The logic is quite simple: hit them where it hurts, disrupt their safe havens, deter their families from aiding them, and show zero tolerance. This achieves two things. First, it disrupts the logistical support system of terrorists. Second, it delivers a psychological blow. I'll tell you what I mean. Demolitions are a low-cost, high-visibility tactic. It takes years to build a home. But taking the path of terrorism means that it could be gone in seconds. It's a bold strategy with severe effects. Families have to bear the cost of terrorism. It often pits them against each other. Families of the terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack are urging the attackers to surrender. And this is not a new tactic. You may remember the Pulwama attack in 2019. A suicide bomber rammed into a military convoy. He killed at least 40 soldiers. After the attacker was identified, his home was also demolished by security forces. This is a tactic that has been used for years, only this time the scale is massive. But there's also a flip side. The houses belong to families, not just terrorists. In fact, many of the terrorists have not visited their homes in years. In many cases, terrorists barge into these houses at gunpoint. Local families say they have no choice but to give shelter. And then there's the legal question. The demolitions happen without trials or convictions. And yet, this strategy is commonly used across the world. Israel has demolished the houses of Palestinian militants for decades, and they've had mixed results. In some cases, they have prevented future attacks. In others, they have only fueled resentment. So will this work in Kashmir? Well, it depends on two things: precision and legitimacy. Until now, the demolitions have been controlled. No collateral damage has been reported. All the 9 houses have been brought down without impacting neighboring buildings, and India has acted on solid evidence against the terror suspects. Jammu and Kashmir's Chief Minister Omar Abdullah has backed the approach. For now, India must focus on two things: decisive action against terrorists and assuring local Kashmiris that they are not the target. This demolition drive is a signal. Terrorism will be met with an iron fist. My enemy's enemy is my friend. You may have heard this popular saying before. It means two parties become allies when they share a common enemy. As tensions between India and Pakistan escalate, New Delhi has reached out to the Taliban in Afghanistan. Indian diplomats met Taliban's foreign minister. They discussed two things: rising tensions in the region and improving bilateral ties. And this comes after the Taliban condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. So why is India talking to a group that was literally a terrorist group itself? Because Afghanistan under the Taliban is no friend of Pakistan. Border clashes are frequent. Islamabad's deportation of Afghan refugees has caused severe friction. Now the Taliban is reaching out to India. They want to do business with New Delhi, and India, for its part, is playing its hand smartly. Because in geopolitics, there are no permanent friends or enemies, only interests. Our next report has more.
On the 27th of April, an important meeting was held in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. The Taliban administration hosted senior Indian diplomats. Taliban's acting foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi, met a contingent sent by New Delhi. Leading the Indian team was diplomat M. Anand Prakash, the Joint Secretary of the Pakistan-Afghanistan-Iran Division in the Ministry of External Affairs. The two sides discussed multiple issues, like the rising tensions between India and Pakistan after the Pahalgam attack, along with Taliban's wish of increasing India's role in Afghanistan. Let's start with the India-Pakistan tensions. The two countries have been on the edge since the Pahalgam terror attack last week. The Taliban administration have condemned the attack. They said that such an incident undermines regional security. When Taliban's acting foreign minister met the Indian diplomatic contingent, he offered his condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones in the attack. And then they got down to business. The Taliban have requested New Delhi to increase diplomatic and economic ties. Taliban's acting foreign minister also requested India to increase the number of visas for Afghan students, business persons and patients. However, the business and economic discussions also focused on Pakistan. After the Pahalgam terror attack, India has taken a slew of measures against its western neighbour. One of this includes shutting down the Atari land border crossing. This border crossing also enabled trade between India and Afghanistan. Afghan traders would send trucks full of dry fruits to India using the Atari border. But now with the border closed, they are unable to export their dry fruits. The Taliban have requested India to find ways to ensure that trade is not disrupted. Taliban have also urged New Delhi to resume infrastructure projects in Afghanistan like building hospitals and dams. Clearly, the regime in Afghanistan sees India as a vital partner, and a major reason for this is Pakistan. Afghanistan under Taliban and Pakistan are not on good terms. Border clashes are frequent. Islamabad's move to deport millions of Afghan refugees from its soil has fueled tensions, and Taliban's refusal to accept the current Afghanistan-Pakistan border, also known as the Durand Line, has Islamabad furious. And by condemning the Pahalgam terror attack, the Taliban are angering Islamabad even more. The Taliban are angering Islamabad further. India is playing the diplomatic game smartly. New Delhi has maintained ties with Taliban despite not recognizing it as Afghanistan's legal government, because India sees Afghanistan as an ally. And now diplomatic talks have become more frequent. Can India and Taliban find common ground? Well, when it comes to Pakistan, the answer to that question is evidently yes.
Stories matter, but so do storytellers. Just consider the story of a hunt. If you're a hunter, your story is about chasing. If you're an animal, your story is about escaping. Same story, two emotions. Ideally, you need a neutral storyteller here. Not the hunter or the hunted, but someone who's neutral. I'll tell that to foreign media houses. Their playbook is quite simple. You want a story on Kashmir? Just ask a journalist from Pakistan to write it. I'll pull up some examples for you. Here's a report on the Indus Treaty in Nikai. The writer is a Pakistani journal. He talks about a militant strike in Kashmir. Next is the New York Times. This article attempts to draw a parallel between the Pahalgam attack and last month's Balochistan train attack. It talks about Pakistan accusing India of sponsoring terrorism. Again, the writer is a Pakistani. Now, this is problematic for obvious reasons. Pakistani citizens consider Kashmir to be theirs. Their government peddles propaganda about Jammu and Kashmir, so naturally their perspective will be biased. But that's not the only problem here. We don't expect Pakistani journalists to take India's side. We expect the Dawn newspaper to back Pakistan. We expect Geo News and the Express Tribune to do the same, because these are all Pakistani outlets. The problem comes when foreign outlets do the same thing. You don't have a stake in this conflict. So your job is to be a neutral storyteller. You cannot be neutral by asking Pakistanis to write on Kashmir. And this is just one example. The media has become a battleground. India has banned 16 Pakistani YouTube channels. This includes some of their leading news outlets as well, like Dawn, ARY News and Sama TV. New Delhi says these channels are spreading fake news. The government of India has also written to the BBC. Over what? The outlet's description of the attack. The BBC did not call it terrorism. They've called it a militant attack. Reports say the government conveyed its concerns to the BBC. Similar messages were also sent to other outlets like the Associated Press and Reuters. Frankly, this must only happen to India. You've just been attacked by terrorists. You've lost 26 civilian lives. Your neighbor is a known sponsor of terror, yet your story is being downplayed. Things would have been very different elsewhere. We saw the response when Israel was attacked by Hamas. No downplaying, no gunmen, no militants, just straight up condemnation by Western media. This should be a wake-up call for India, because the conflicts of tomorrow won't just be fought on the battlefield, they will be fought online. It's not just about overpowering your enemy, it's about shaping global opinion, and Pakistan knows this well. Last week, the defense minister spoke to Sky News, one of the most viewed news channels in Britain. Today, he spoke to Reuters, one of the biggest news agencies in the world. Both interviews were used to raise the same point, that an all-out war is coming. The idea here is to use foreign media to spread panic. Suddenly, other world leaders take notice, so they jump in to push for de-escalation. This is how Pakistan is using the media to their advantage. What about India? We haven't seen a coherent strategy yet. Yes, banning Pakistani channels is a good start, but that's a defensive move. You need to use the media to tell your story, whether it's the brutality of last week's attack, or Pakistan's double game on terrorism, or their campaigns against India. And it should be easy, considering it is the truth. But the question is, does India realize how important this narrative war is? We have to say the early indications are not good. Let's hope New Delhi gets its act together. Now let's turn our attention to Iran. An immense blast has ripped through the biggest port in the country. It has killed more than 40 people, injured at least 1,200 others, 1,200 people. What caused this explosion? Iran remains cagey about the details, but speculation is rife. Experts say it was rocket fuel sent by China. Specifically, a chemical used to make fuel for ballistic missiles. That's what blew up. That's what experts are saying. Reports say that it may have been improperly handled at the port, and this may have triggered the explosion. The timing could not have been worse for Iran. Our next report tells you why.
The death toll from a huge blast in Iran has risen to at least 46. More than 1,200 people are injured. But mourning has quickly turned into anger as the government remains busy playing a blame game. So what happened? On Saturday, a powerful explosion took place at the port of Bandar Abbas in southern Iran. It's the largest commercial port in the country. Fires started breaking out in the Shahid Rajai section of the port. They sent up massive plumes of black smoke. The blast shattered windows for several kilometers around. Residents 50 kilometers away reported feeling the effects. The explosion tore metal strips off shipping containers. As firefighters worked to extinguish the fire, dropping water from the skies, carrying bodies through the smoke, authorities closed off roads leading to the site, and many people rushed to hospitals across the country to give blood. On Sunday, the city of Bandar Abbas shut all schools and offices. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian arrived to investigate the situation, oversee relief efforts, and meet with the injured. Over the weekend, condolences poured in from all over the world, including India, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Russia, a key ally, ordered multiple specialist firefighting aircraft to be sent to Iran to help with the relief efforts. Emergency workers had hoped the blaze would be fully extinguished by Sunday afternoon. But as of today, the fire is only 90% extinguished. People have been told to stay indoors and mark 3 days of mourning. Authorities warn of possible food shortages because the affected port handles nearly 80% of the country's imports and remains out of action in many parts. So what caused the explosion? Well, the answer is unclear. But speculations have reached only one conclusion: rocket fuel. According to experts, the fires that spread between containers before the explosion could be a result of chemicals used to make missile propellants. Because what exploded was reportedly sodium perchlorate. This is a major ingredient in solid fuel for missiles. Reports say that containers holding the fuel were improperly handled. This speculation comes after Iran had reportedly imported hundreds of tons of the fuel from China at the port, first in February and then again in March. But Iranian officials deny such claims. They say that no military material was held at the port and that the explosion had nothing to do with Iran's defense sector. But many continue to blame the authorities. They ask how such a flammable toxic material could be left at a port without much care, especially because the timing is crucial. The blast ripped through the port when Iranian and US delegations were meeting for high-level talks for the third round of nuclear talks via mediators in Oman. This aims at a deal that would block Tehran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and lift Washington's crippling economic sanctions. Both sides have reported progress, agreeing to continue the talks. But this tragedy has overshadowed it. As the fires continue to blaze, a thick cloud of toxic chemicals hangs over the area, and dozens of families mourn their dead.
Two leaders, two agendas, and one crucial meeting. I'm talking about the rendezvous in Rome. US President Donald Trump met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The meeting took place on Saturday on the sidelines of Pope Francis's funeral. And the 15-minute huddle made global headlines because the optics were striking. This meeting was supposed to be between three leaders: US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and French President Emmanuel Macron. 3 chairs had been placed in the Vatican's St. Peter's Basilica. But Trump had different plans. He stopped Macron from joining in. So it was a one-on-one meeting between him and Zelensky. And the images were dramatic. The two leaders sat just 2 feet apart, no mediators, no additional staff, just Trump and Zelensky. Ukraine is calling it a historic meeting. But what was the outcome? The US and Ukraine have agreed to continue talks. Trump has promised Zelensky that he will be tougher on Russia. The US president also took jabs at Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think the meeting went well. We'll see what happens over the next few days. We'll probably learn a lot. I was very disappointed that missiles were flying by Russia, but that missiles were flying. Very disappointing. We'll see how it goes.
Trump also threatened more sanctions on Russia. He said Moscow's war machine had to be stopped. Now, this is a major shift. Till now, the US president was cozying up to Putin. Now he's questioning Russia's intentions. Trump said Putin has disappointed him. Listen to this.
I want to see what happens with respect to Russia, because Russia had been surprised and disappointed, very disappointed that they did the bombing of those places after discussions.
So Trump is not happy with Russia. And he says the meeting with Zelensky went well. What are the implications? For Ukraine, this meeting was a glimmer of hope. Like I said, Zelensky called the talks historic. He's now banking on Trump to pressure Russia. But here's the catch. The US president keeps changing his mind and his tone. He's desperate for a quick resolution. He also wants a deal. Trump says everything comes at a price. For Ukraine, that price could be Crimea. Trump wants Ukraine to give up on Crimea. It's a region Russia took in 2014. Trump says Ukraine should accept that now Crimea is Russian territory. He also said that Crimea was never his problem to begin with.
But Crimea was given away by Barack Hussein Obama and by Biden. That's 11 or 12 years ago. That's a long time ago. I don't know how you can bring up Crimea, because that's been a long time. Nobody brought it up for 12 years, and now they bring it up now. So I told them, you can maybe go back to Obama, ask him why they gave it up. Now
let's talk implications. Europe has been completely sidelined, and I mean literally. Just look at how Trump treated Macron. The French president was just brushed off. What about the United Kingdom? Prime Minister Keir Starmer was not even in the picture. Clearly, Trump is in no mood to include Europe in the talks. Meanwhile, Ukraine walks a tightrope. A ceasefire will be costly. Ceding territory to Russia seems like a given. Trump may also walk away with a rare earth minerals deal. That will be the price for peace in Ukraine. As for Russia, this is a balancing act for them. Putin has all the cards. He controls the territory and the military escalation. He wants Russia's demands to be accepted. He wants to keep the territories that he controls, including Crimea. He says Ukraine should never be allowed into NATO. Putin had even convinced Trump. But then there were the missile attacks on Kiev last week. Trump did not like that, so he threatened Moscow, saying all bets would be off if the attacks did not stop. In response, Russia has announced a surprise three-day ceasefire from the 8th to the 10th of May. Putin knows how to play this game, obviously. He knows that Trump has an ego and it needs to be fed from time to time. That explains the call for a 72-hour ceasefire. Ukraine has also learned some tricks. They have now called for a 30-day ceasefire. So you could say that for Trump, this is a time to flex his diplomacy because the US president may have bulldozed his way through. He's got the talks rolling. Both Russia and Ukraine are hinting at ceasefires. Diplomacy is back on the table. The meeting in Rome was a snapshot of current times. The stakes are still high, trust remains fragile, and the world continues to wait anxiously. Now let's turn our attention to the Indo-Pacific region where a PR wrestling match is underway. And the trophy is a tiny mass of sand in the West Philippine Sea. These are strategic waters. They're highly disputed. Parts of the sea are claimed by many governments, including the Philippines. But China, being China, claims ownership of almost all of it. Now, China and the Philippines have conducted rivaling photo opportunities in the waterway. They have each unfurled their national flags on tiny sandbars in the West Philippine Sea, or what Beijing calls the South China Sea. This is stoking up long-standing regional tensions. But why now? And what will become of this? Here's a report.
When it comes to politics, optics matters. Sometimes they can help in diplomacy, but sometimes they can ratchet up long-standing regional tensions. We are talking about the rivaling public relations stunt by China and the Philippines. The two countries have each unfurled their national flags on a tiny mass of sand in the West Philippine Sea, or what Beijing calls the South China Sea. This is a strategic waterway in the Indo-Pacific region, and it is widely seen as a flashpoint for global conflict. Several Southeast Asian nations claim parts of the sea. But China has claimed its ownership over most of the waterway, despite an international ruling saying that it has no basis. Over the past 2 decades, Beijing has occupied many obscure reefs across the sea, even if they are far from its shoreline. It has built up military installations and ports on them. And now, it is clicking pictures over a small sandbar in the sea, the Sandy Cay. This is a string of 3 uninhabited sandbanks. It lies near the Thitu Island, where the Philippines maintains a military outpost. The latest dispute began last week. China's mouthpiece media claimed that it exercised sovereign jurisdiction over the Tetian Reef, which is the Chinese name for Sandy Cay. Next, a photo aired on its broadcaster. It showed Chinese officials in black uniforms, walking along the white sandbar. Another photo showed 4 officers holding up a Chinese flag. They called it a show of sovereignty. But the Philippines said, not so fast. Manila sent teams to multiple sandbars. On Sunday, it deployed the country's Navy, Coast Guard, and police on different parts of Sandy Cay, saying that the officers observed the illegal presence of a nearby Chinese Coast Guard's vessel and 7 Chinese maritime militia vessels. And then came this picture. It showed 5 officers holding the Philippine national flag on a white sandbar. By Sunday night, China retorted.
China's rights protection and law enforcement activities there are conducted in accordance with the law, aimed at countering the Philippines' illegal landings and other acts of infringement and provocation, firmly safeguarding national territorial sovereignty. ensuring that the reef remains uninhabited and without facilities.
This latest standoff in the contested waters risks further stoking tensions between the two countries, which have become increasingly fraught in recent years. It is also a key test for the Trump administration, with the U.S. being a mutual defense ally of the Philippines. Despite Trump's mercurial views on protecting its allies, his cabinet contains vocal China hawks. They have spoken publicly on needing to push back against China's growing ambitions in the Indo-Pacific region. And the timing of the latest stunt is crucial. It comes as the U.S. and Philippine forces are carrying out their annual war scenario drills, what's called the Balakatan exercises, where as many as 17,000 personnel are taking part. And in a first, missiles from the U.S. Marine Air Defense Integrated System were fired off the coast of the northern Philippines. So now China, in its usual fashion, seems to be acting out. It is trying to provoke the Philippines. But if this photo opportunity tussle proves anything, it is this: Beijing cannot bully Manila.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. The White House displays photos of detained immigrants on the lawn for Trump's 100th day in office. Fans were left in the dark at the Madrid Open after a widespread power outage hit the Spanish capital. An on-field turns into a sea of red as Liverpool clinches the Premier League title. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1945, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was executed. He was shot dead by Italian partisans. This happened while he and his mistress were trying to flee to Switzerland. Mussolini was then hung upside down in Milan's public square. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Restored to Rome by the arts of peace.
Together.